Schopenhauer has a quote that says, "The person who writes for fools is assured of a large audience." And that is the basis of this entire video. And it's not a pivot per se for my channel, but it's the title of this video is going to be called "The INTJ Reviews Mel Robbins' Let Them Theory" book. It's the #1 book on Amazon. And I have always looked at that Schopenhauer quote and gone, well, if something's popular, if something is mainstream, it must be bad because if most people like it, it can't be good. But I decided to challenge myself and challenge that arrogance and say, look, you read it, you judge it, you actually figure out if it's bad or good and try to keep an open mind while you're doing it. So I read The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And first, I'll say this. There's so much to say. There's this marketing tool I use called Publisher Rocket. It just shows you like how to what categories you should put your book in, what ads are running. It gives you other competitor analysis to show where they place their books on Amazon, what their rankings are, how many daily and monthly sales they have. And the Let Them Theory right now, it's the #1 selling book on Amazon. Makes $35,000 a day in sales and makes $800,000 a month. So it's so widely popular. I said, okay, let me read it and analyze it. And if this video goes well, I'm planning to look at read #1 books in other categories like business and finance and self-help and cooking, anything, and just see, are the #1 books good or are they just popular? And obviously we know the difference there. So let's just say the first thing about this book I'll say is that if you look it up, look at the reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, the first thing you'll notice is people talk about the idea of the book being plagiarized. I'm going to post this link in the description, but a poet named Cassie Phillips wrote a poem called Let Them in October 2022. And if you look at the progress of when that book came out or that poem came out, and then when Mel Robbins discovered it and posted about it on social media and what it did for her, you can clearly tell that there's no coincidence that she didn't see that poem and go, I can capitalize on this. And apparently she did try to copyright it, get that phrase copywritten, but the Copyright Office denied her because of this other poem. She is a lawyer by trade, Mel Robbins, so she does understand how copyright law works. And she claims in her interviews that she did not plagiarize. She had no idea about this. But Cassie Phillips, the poet, got Let Them tattooed on herself. In Mel Robbins' book, Let Them Theory, she talks a bit about how everyone was sending her the Let Them tattoo inspired by her, Mel Robbins. So there's some screenshots I'm going to put on here from my favorites from Amazon and Goodreads. And before I even tell you about the book, even what it's about, let's just read some of these. So Amazon, 1 star, don't waste your time. You know those scammy online courses influencers are selling? This is basically the book version of that. It is nonsensically written. I've read tons of self-help books and actually ended up putting this down because it was so terribly written. Another one, 1 star, lame. This was a simple piece of advice disguised as a book, incessantly repetitive and very little I didn't feel was obvious and basic. The writing was elementary and made it hard to take the writer seriously. That was on Amazon. Now, Goodreads, which is owned by Amazon, is a little bit, I like Goodreads a little bit more because they're very precise and they're more critical. Someone said this is the worst book I will read in 2025, and it's only January. It's the worst book. It might be the worst book I've read in my life, and I had just turned 56. If you want to understand how Trump became president, if you want to understand why there's a focus on influencers rather than intelligent people who know what they're doing, if you want to understand the decontextualization of poverty or homelessness, then this is your book. We have an underperforming, undereducated woman summoning under-referenced research to offer a commentary about life. Her own life has been punctuated by a series of failures, yet she then uses the failures from her husband and children to create a theory. Please note, this lady writes, the word theory is used in the title. This is not a theory. What is offered is a vibe, an opinion, a data set of one. whether you agree with the politics of that statement or not, but it is exactly the let them theory has very little research. She talks about research, but the research is her friends that are some Harvard or Penn graduate or researcher that she discussed with, and they told her that the let them theory is actually very profound, and in neuroscience, we call it this. So that's the research. Someone else said, I rarely write reviews, but this book feels like a personal insult to readers' intelligence and ethics. And I'll elaborate on this because what they do say is that there's nothing new here. If you've read the Stoics, if you've read any sort of philosophy or any self-help that references the idea of live and let live, or you do you, boo, or don't let what other people do or think affect your progress, your happiness. All the let them theory is let other people think what they want to think. Don't let what they think or what you think they might feel about you affect your life. That is it. Most people said this book could be an Instagram post, but she took 300 pages to write repetitively about stories. And I say stories because once you realize the origin story of Let Them is fake, then you can't believe anything else in the book. So she says, Let Them came to her when her son was getting ready for prom, and he was, of course, picked his date and his suit and his boutonniere 2 days before. So there was a mad scramble at the Robbins household to get everything ready. And as they were leaving to go to prom, she goes, "Did anyone get a reservation for a restaurant?" And of course, no one did. So she is taking control of the situation, and she's trying to coordinate people, and there's a mass gaggle of people trying to get ready, and it's raining outside, and the daughter says, "Mom, just stop worrying about it. Let them do their own thing. Let their shoes get dirty. Let them be late to the prom. Let them have horrible pictures." And she said, and all of a sudden, the let them sparked like a light switch in my head. And I was like, that's how this theory came about. Well, no, it was just plagiarized, but she had to create a composite character, a composite story that sounds believable. So from the beginning, you're like, this story didn't happen, and however you came up with it is obviously you're trying to be relatable to people. And that's one of my biggest critiques of this book is this idea of this fake relatability. There's numerous times where she says the idea, hey, if you ever felt X, don't worry, I've been there too. But the I've been there too is contradictory to somewhere else you've also been. It's like, you ever been controlling? Don't worry, I've been controlling. You ever not been organized enough? Don't worry, I've not been organized enough too. So that's another thing that's just, it's so mocking. This person's comment about, you're really insulting your readers thinking that this information that is so generic, so vapid, so vague is going to change their life. But you look at 12,000 comments on Amazon saying this book changed my life. I'm like, it's troubling to me. It's troubling to me that people can read this and go, this is new. This is something life-changing. This is what I needed. That's one of the most disturbing things is a book that says, hey man, maybe you don't have to let other people's thoughts or actions affect you. Maybe just let it, slide right off your back. That's brand new life advice. If that's life advice for you in your, 30s and 40s and 50s, you're way behind. The other thing, and this is just kind of a social media influencer thing that I hate, is she quotes herself at the beginning of chapters. It'll be like, chapter 6, Mel Robbins quote, Mel Robbins. And you're like, wow, you quoted yourself in your own book. It's like, that's just so, it's like marketing. It's so PR polished that sometimes you're like, it's not that AI wrote it. It doesn't, there's no, that's not what I'm saying. It's just, it sounds like so many different hands got involved in making it seem like what's the most marketable book we could write with the biggest audience, with the most generic advice, that even if 10% of people think it's the worst book ever written, 90% will be like, wow, it's great. And what I've learned from this book is that I've written a book, I've written 2 books. Other people in like the Myers-Briggs community or other communities have written books that are great. They sold like 500 copies ever. But now I'm more inclined to read that because at least I know that they didn't write it to try to be like Mel Robbins, to try to be super popular. Um, and that's the part that was a big revelation to me because I'll go back and look at my book and I'll be like, that is real advice. That's not a composite story. It's a real story. That's a lived experience that I lived, and people that know me know that. Uh, so that's just that cracked me up. This other thing she did is, and someone else mentions it in one of their comments, is she keeps talking about when I was researching this book, and there's like zero research cited. It's just I have a Stanford friend. Her name's so and so. She's a top neuroscientist. When I was discussing this book with her, she said that this is actually called X in neuroscience, and that really led me to believe that I was on the right track, or some garbage like that. So I was just cracking up the whole time. Like, if someone is reading this going, wow, she's just blowing my mind with this newfound theory of live and let live, we're in trouble. So, to be fair, I do have a quote here. I have two sections on my notepad over here, quotes that aren't bad, and then quotes that are bad. And I'll just read the quotes that aren't bad, and there's only one. I was 41 when I hit rock bottom and created the 5-second rule to help me get out of bed. I was 44 when I had that anxiety attack on the TEDx stage. I was 46 when I got my first speaking paycheck. I was 49 when I self-published my first book, The 5-Second Rule. I was 50 when I started my media production company. And I was 54 when I launched the Mel Robbins podcast, one of the most popular and fastest growing podcasts in the world. The reason I highlighted that as not bad is it lets you know that you don't have to make it early in life. Sometimes it takes a while. Ray Kroc's a great story. The guy who created McDonald's, he was 50. There's so many great stories of people inventing, not even reinventing, just finding themselves late in life. That's the best. Page 9. There it is. Look over, close it. Page 12. This is page 12 of the quotes that are bad in my mind. The reality is, no matter how hard you try or what you do, you cannot control other people, and yet you live your life as you can. Generic. Page 17. If you're struggling to change your life, achieve your goals, or feel happier, I want you to hear this. The problem isn't you. The problem is the power you unknowingly give to other people. Generic, boring, heard it 100 times. Page 18. The truth is, other people hold no real power over you unless you give it to them. Dangerous, false, and wrong. Okay, so we're just cranking. We're like 3 pages in a row. Okay, page 25. 2 simple words. Let them. Changed everything. It was as if I didn't care and was weirdly above it all. The things that used to bother me just didn't. The people who used to annoy me just didn't. The tight grip that I had on life started to loosen up. Situations at work that would stress me out or cause me to go home and complain to my family just rolled off my back. Brain space that was once overflowing with dumb worries, annoyances, and drama was now available for more important things. The more I said let them, the more I realized that a lot of what I was worried about wasn't worth my time, nor did it deserve my attention. Not everyone was worth my energy. It was liberating. The more I said let them, the more time I had for myself. Time to think, time to breathe, time to have fun, time to spend on what mattered to me, time to take care of myself. If that isn't the worst garbage writing about just how one phrase changed everything that was already programmed into your brain from over 50 years, that one phrase just annihilated all the biases and all the neural pathways in your brain. It's just amazing. Page 38. If you're familiar with Stoicism, Buddhism, detachment theory, or radical acceptance, you'll recognize that let them and let me applies these teachings and turns them into a practical, everyday tool for improving your relationships and reclaiming your power. Just repackaged plagiarism. So she plagiarized Cassie Phillips, and then she repackaged something that we all know and have heard 100 times for profit. That was one of the other titles of a comment was repackaging for profit. Page 92. Don't be the person who bends over backwards to make everyone happy. I used to be that person. Fake relatability again. And last one is page 118. If you're having this realization, here's what I want to say to you. You're not alone. I've had that realization about myself too. Is that are you a faux therapist? This just kills me. And so I guess what I'm getting here is this book is negative stars. It is not worth reading. It is wildly popular. So the overall theme here is this a one-off popular book that actually isn't good, or is the more popular you get, like Mr. Schopenhauer said, if you write for a lot for fools, you're going to get a large audience. I think it's true. So I'm going to give this book 10 out of 10 Schopenhauers, which is the worst you can be, which is that you have you're writing for the most amount of people, which means you're writing for the mostly fools. Um, I read it. I don't recommend anyone else reads it. I did pay the $17.99 on Kindle, which I try to get a refund because it was that bad. It was offensive to me in general. And it's not even trying to be funny. It is actually insulting to believe that this advice, this generic advice, should be written about and should be so popular. And what I also found just gross was that she mentioned 2 times that Martin Luther King's son was on her podcast, and how he mentioned that the let them theory was reminiscent of his father's ideas of have a dream and his revolutionary ideas about nonviolence and nonviolent protests and things like that. So that was the most insulting one, that she thought she could try to tie that in, but also that his son would go on Mel Robbins' podcast knowing that let them has no relevance to his dad. So it's a lot of just gross profit corporatism trying to make money off something that's very generic. So um, I hope the INTJ arrogant mindset came across here, and let you know that this is not a book for an intelligent person. It's an unthinking person's book. This is for your aunt, your wine aunt who is wine o'clock or live, laugh, love, and it's a book for her to try to change her life. It's not for a thinking person's life-changing book. It will not help you improve yourself. It will not help you improve your personal relationships. You will not be a successful business person. You'll not be a better boss or a husband or a spouse or a parent reading this book. So 0 stars if you could do it. Let me know what you think. If you have read it, is it worthwhile? What did I miss? Am I missing something? How did it change your life? Because it certainly won't change anyone in my audience's life. Thank you.